Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the This Week Sports Roundtable. I'm copy editor Andy Resnik, and today I'm joined by sports writers Dave Purpura and Jarrod Ulrey, and it's time to hoop it up. This is our Hoop It Up. This is our Hoop It Up season preview for Central Ohio boys and girls basketball. Last season, Afrocentric and Pickerington Central girls teams won state titles, and Pickerington Central boys lost in a state semifinal. And all three of those teams are loaded with talent and have a chance to cut down the nets at Ohio State in March, or at least we think so. Yeah. So let's get the ball rolling, and let's discuss the best boys and girls teams in the area. And let's start with the girls, since their season is already underway. Dave, you cover Pick Central, Jarrod covers Afrocentric. Maybe we'll start with those two teams and see where the discussion goes.
Well, I know in our first Super 7, which those are going to change throughout the season, and we're going to have those fairly regularly throughout the regular season this winter. We did have Afrocentric number 1. Now they're ranked, I believe, like number 8 in the nation according to USA Today. I'm not sure about the rank. I think it was like 7, 8, somewhere in there. If that gives you any kind of an indication of what they've got this year. Jordan Horston, for those of you who maybe you've only seen her maybe down at state or some other times, she's an incredibly dynamic athlete, really something special. And she's going to Tennessee. She's where she makes everything happen. I mean, we kind of saw this happening when she was a freshman, sophomore. I mean, she was so good even back then. And she just continued to mature. Her game has continued to grow. And she averaged 18 points a game last year. But she's also the kind of player in this offense that she could easily average like 25 to 30 points a game. But they've got so much talent around them with people like Alexia Smith, Alexia's sister, Ariana Smith. It's really good. They've got a girl going to Southern Arkansas who's going to play for the former Wellington coach Fleming's down there.
That's right.
Tiara Cook. Just an incredibly deep team is what they've got. And I really don't see anybody in Division III matching up with them in the state. I think that's pretty reasonable to say right now.
That seems like how it is a lot.
Yeah.
With them. When they have a really quality team, and you mentioned Pick Central being up there as well. Those two played in a foundation game. I believe it was last week, right before Thanksgiving, when Afrocentric pulled that out, I think by 3 points or something. Central is going to be right there again this year. They've got most of their key players back from last year. They lost Kyla Whitehead, who was a forward. She went to Dayton. In fact, has already had a double-double down there. She's already been playing really well with the Flyers. Bexley Wallace has earned a start or two with Penn State already. But for the girls that are still at Central, Madison Green is going to be one of Bexley's teammates at Penn State next year. She's a dynamic guard. She played extremely well in the state tournament last year. Malia Perry, 6'2", going to Auburn. She's a forward. They don't have nearly as much size as they've had, but they have some more guards who can shoot it. Sky Williams moved in from Tays Valley this year. I think when I counted for my preview, I want to say she has 16 Division I offers already, including some very good schools looking her, a lot of the MACs, some of the major powers.
And she's only like a sophomore.
She's only a sophomore.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Nicole Stevens is a junior, is really good from outside. She's going to get a lot more playing time. And there's another Tate. In fact, there are 2 more Tates. Jada and Jocelyn are on this roster. They're going to be more forwards, but they're going to be right there again. They beat Springboro convincingly in their opener on Sunday down at Lakota East in the Journey to the Tourney. So they're off to a very good start again, and they're going to be right there with the Reynoldsburg team that you know very well, covering them for years. I'm sure those two are going to battle it out for the league, and we'll see how else that league develops.
The OCC Ohio.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The OCC Ohio, just like in football, and just like we'll talk about with boys basketball, Pick Central, Reynoldsburg, Gahanna, you had them all in your preseason Super 7 for Hoop It Up. That league, pick a sport, that's a great league. And so
and I think
you cover Reynoldsburg and Gahanna. So
Pickerington North in a year or two is probably going to be back to where they've been.
Well, Dave covers Pickerington North, and Silas Williams has come over from Westerville South to be the coach. So maybe that's a good place to continue with.
They're excited about what Silas Williams is doing. I'm talking about the players are. I know that they lost a close game on Sunday to Watkins Memorial over in Reynoldsburg's Tip-Off Classic. But when I went out and talked to them for their preseason preview, to a girl, they were all very excited about what Silas Williams wants to do. They're going to a man-to-man defense. They want to run the floor more than they have in previous years, and they've got some important parts back. The Bates sisters are both going to play huge parts. Their dad is the boys coach out there. Mikhail is a senior guard. Mason is a sophomore guard/forward. She's going to be important. Avery Hart, who was a great soccer player as well, she put in, I think, 21 points on Sunday in their opener. So those are just going to be a couple of their keys. Like you talked about Reynoldsburg, it's funny. If you go to their games, you're going to see a familiar face on the sideline. He being Dave
That's
Butcher,
right.
who is going to be one of Jack Purtell's assistants this year. Just as kind of an interesting wrinkle going to the other side of I-70. But
obviously, there's not going to be any more wins on a sideline than they're going to have.
No, not between those two.
I mean, Jack's had a great career out of Reynoldsburg, and he's got. He's had some great teams over the years. I think on paper this potentially could be with Uju Azudu being a senior this year. She's a Denver signee. Then this potentially is one of his best teams. I think for sure. I think there's probably 4 or 5 teams that are in Central Ohio. Also, when you include Newark, because they are they're just outside of our coverage area, but they play in the OCC Capital, and they're going to play against all these teams. So we need to talk about them.
They beat a pretty good UA team last night by 32 points.
Yeah, I mean UA Upper Arlington's pretty good. Macy Spielman is a really good player.
Now they're all
beat them by
scorer
32
as well.
Yeah, they beat them by 32. Morgan Shoemate Morgan Sharps and Katie Shoemate, excuse me, both Division I players, and they got to be feeling pretty motivated. I mean, just a couple of years ago they made it to the state tournament, and then last year they got knocked off in a regional semifinal, which also kind of shows you how much depth is in the Central District this year. We've gone 7 minutes into our show, and we've not mentioned J.C. Sheldon yet.
I was actually
almost
I was going to word
embarrassed
it.
about
I was going to word it the exact same way because
she just threw in 38 points the other day against Reynoldsburg.
Well, I did that Twitter poll, or what wasn't a poll, Twitter question. Who's the best high school player that you've ever seen? And I said not named LeBron James, because anybody who saw LeBron James play high school basketball in Ohio is going to say he's the best player they ever saw. And I would say 5 or 6 people responded J.C. Sheldon. I mean, we got 100 responses, and to say, that Sheldon is the best they've ever seen.
Well, the thing about it is she took when she was a freshman, she was a good player, and then she took this massive leap forward as a sophomore, and then she took another step forward last year. And I mean, I don't know how much better she can get, but it's like you look when you compare her with Jordan Horston. They're completely they look a lot different in terms of their what they bring to the table in terms of their tools, but JC is she's an extremely smooth player who can shoot the ball really great. She handles an offense well. I think that maybe she's gotten a little stronger this year, and when she gets to Ohio State, I think that's going to be very important next year. But I mean, she averaged 26 points a game last year, and there's no reason to think she's going to do less than that. I mean, and she's got like 1,700 career points or something. I mean, it's just incredible.
I mean, I think
she's got a good team around her this year too. I mean, it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
They've got this freshman that I think is going to. Apparently, she's going to be pretty special. Her second game as a high school player, she scored 23 points. Amariana Russell is her name. And then they've got Caitlin Copier's back also, and she's a very good player. They lost one of their inside players to graduation from last year, but you got Riley Wagner, who's also a Division I athlete, but she's going to play volleyball at Hawaii, and she's kind of going to be taking up a lot of space down low for them. So.
One of the many girls honored last night at the bank.
Yeah,
I might add.
And actually, Hawaii retweeted our tweet about her winning. It came up in her mentions, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's going to Hawaii, because that's. I mean, I can't remember any other Central Ohio athletes going to Hawaii.
She could have gone to a major school in Central District or something she could have gone to a school like Ohio State, and been a defensive specialist. But she wants to be a recruiter. But that's kind of a different story.
Well, who doesn't want to go to Hawaii?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
As we're talking, I mean, it seems like you could almost say that out of the four district champions, we're kind of marking down Kaufman, Pick Central, because they're just so talented.
I think there's 5 teams.
Westerville South.
And,
we
right.
have they've got 4 players who are Division I commits. I mean, they don't have Silas Williams as coach anymore. They've got all those great players from last year are back. New coach, but the same talent's back.
Don't count Arlington out too, just depending on how all their talent develops. Just kind of shaping around. Macy Spielman's going to be the centerpiece of everything for him. And I mentioned off the cuff a few moments ago that she's now their all-time leading scorer. She has 1,131 points, and she eclipsed that mark during the fourth quarter last night against Newark. They've got a center that they're excited about, Risa Pippins, Adrian Watchman, one of our water polo players who was honored last night, guard / a forward, and they've got some other guards that they're pretty excited about too, and they think they can shoot well from outside. So I mean, we'll see. They were a district runner-up last year. They've been district runner-up a few times in the last couple of years. So yeah, you do have that clear top tier, I think, and we'll see more how it develops. But yeah, I agree. Division I, once you get especially beyond, it's really quite
at the top. I mean, I think you could almost pencil in right now the district finals having Pickerington Central, Westerville South, Reynoldsburg, Kaufman, Gahanna, Newark, and possibly Upper Arlington. And then maybe like right after that, you have some teams like Olentangy Liberty is really deep. I mean, they played in the district final last year. They kind of overachieved a little bit last year.
They had a lot of injuries.
But they've got Tegan Pfeiffer back this year. And so I think that they're going to be really strong. I mean, I'm not sure where Waterson's going to rank in this, but they've got a deep team. And you know, we'll talk about, you know, and of course Northland went 21-4 last year, and they've got probably their second best player. I mean, Alexia Hamilton's really good, so they could fall somewhere in the mix too.
Well, before we move on to the boys, are there any other girls teams, players that we just haven't mentioned? We kind of touched on Gahanna, but you didn't really talk much about Gahanna.
Gahanna is they got a new coach this year, Ron Bailey, and he's got a nice group they've got a really good core of young talent. And I mean, not to say that they're a year away. I mean, they won the district last year. They very possibly could win it again this year if they get the right matchup. They've got 2 juniors, Eden Battle and Morgan Darnell, very dynamic guards. And then they've got a strong senior in Madison Hensley. Now they got a lot of young players that they're moving in to some key roles. They don't have a Nigel Harris anymore. So you know, when will some of these other players, how will they step up? And I think that's the only question for them is how quickly they mature. But Eden Battle she's really talented, and Morgan Darnell is a really good ball handler for them. What about some other teams? Can you think of some other ones in Division I that we maybe haven't hit that you like?
I know I cover a few who I think are going to probably have a really good chance at least to get to district semifinals, and because of the balance and the depth. I know one of the players that you mentioned is kind of a preseason honor roll, so to speak. At least the girls that we need to keep an eye on. Josie Smith at New Albany. I mean, she's a 6 foot. She's going to play like a guard and then have to go inside sometimes. Because they don't have a lot of height over there. She's going to be one to watch out for this year. I mean, they won, I think it was 13 games last year, but didn't get beyond the second round of the tournament. In fact, they bumped into a good Liberty team at home in the second round. That's one of them to think about. Olentangy's off to a nice start. They've got some balance. They have one of our volleyball honorees, Olivia Margulies, playing for them. She took last year off to concentrate on volleyball, and I know they're really happy about some of their younger guards as well. So we'll see what kind of noise they can make in their league. And now Winchester too.
And the only other league we really didn't touch on, I don't think, is some teams in the OCC Cardinal. Perhaps Olentangy Berlin, the new school there. I mean, they could make a real dent in this. I know Jen Nation is a really talented player.
Yeah, Jessica Nation. Yeah, she was Olentangy, one of their best players last year. She was their leading scorer.
And of course, Scioto, Dublin Scioto, and Thomas Worthington are, I believe, they were co-champions last year. So those teams are both going to be. I'd say I just got some players back, and Thomas has got Brianne Beatty. Sorry, she's back this year. So and as far as the rest of the city, outside of just Afrocentric and Northland, Eastmore drops to Division II this year, which is very familiar ground for them. They've had some real great moments in Division II. They couldn't quite hit the level last year when they were in Division I. They made it to a district semifinal, I believe. And they had a younger team last year. They got a lot of those kids back, like Mikhail Grant's back this year, and she's a really talented player for them. Division II, I think there's some real strong teams like Eastmore's going to be really good. I think Hartley by the end of the season will be. They're kind of struggling right now. They're a little young. They still got Chiamaka Wakolo, one of our volleyball athletes that we honored last night.
Notice a trend here.
Yeah, a lot of two-sport athletes.
A lot of volleyball, basketball players.
Yes.
And I think Bexley will be pretty good too.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie Vincent. I think they'll be pretty strong this year. Moving into what the other divisions are. Division 3. I mean, obviously, I think it starts with Africentric
And ends with Africentric.
I mean, for our coverage area
Yeah.
concerns, I mean, I think Grandview will be better this year. Reedy is always kind of a sleeper team. I think they're kind of young right now. He has 3 freshmen on his varsity, so we'll see how they're able to mature. They always seem to make a dent though when you get to the tournament.
Well,
And then in Division 4, I want to make sure we mention Lissy Snoffer from Delaware Christian, another incredible athlete.
she's a track athlete
She's
too.
like she's great in volleyball. She's great in track. She's great in basketball.
Yeah. So why don't we move over to the boys? And one thing you noticed about your preseason predictions or preseason rankings, just like football, just like girls basketball, OCC Ohio, OCC Central is dominating the discussion. Although I mean, you got a couple of OCC Buckeye teams in here, boys and girls, but
There's a lot of players that
Pick Central
graduated
right.
so from last year.
But Pickerington Central came up short last year in the state tournament. Don't have Jeremiah Francis because he's injured again, but their roster, their lineup is still packed. They're loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, you're previewing them for next week's paper, so
Yep.
what do you think about the Tigers this year?
I like, Javon Garcia is one of their good players to build around. 6'3" senior. He had been committed to your Miami Redhawks. He did open his commitment again a couple weeks ago. We
won't hold that against him.
But I mean, he's going to have a real nice touch from outside, more than likely. He's one of several guards that is going to be able to handle the ball and shoot very well. They've got a nice inside anchor in Colton Landis. He's 6'7". And he's gotten even stronger from last year. He had a really solid junior season.
Right.
He's drawing some Division II looks, some lower Division I looks as well. Those are just a couple guys that it starts with them. Yeah, they know they're not going to have Jeremiah, unfortunately. Again, I mean, they still consider him part of the team. He's going to be around. But yeah, and it's that's going to fall on a lot of other guys. And
they had a really good sophomore start to emerge last year, right?
They did have some younger guys come along, and they have a couple new additions from Springfield who are from the Pickerington area originally and are coming back. Now, another thing to look at with them, and of course, I hope I'm not losing my train of thought as far as they're concerned. I mean, they lost a really good inside player with Adrian Nelson. He was kind of a 6'4", 6'5" guy. He's down in Northern Kentucky that they're going to have to try to build around. But they have a way of really starting to develop guys in a hurry, and that's one reason I think that they're going to make another deep run this year and probably win more than 18 games. But I mean, they have a loaded schedule. It's not like going 18-9 is any kind of indictment on them, other than the fact that they play a lot of really good teams. And I would take that as an indictment, as a good one, quite honestly. But yeah, I think they're going to be there again. Whether they go back to the top of that league is a good question. I mean, Pickerington North obviously lost Hunter and McNamara, and Ross Ryan was a big guy in the middle for them. He didn't get the minutes or the points that the other guys got.
We know they're going to be well coached, though.
Oh, they will be. Jason makes such a good job. I mean, just like Eric Kruger has over at Central. I think more with Pick North this year is going to fall on the likes of Jack Sawyer, who I talked to him during the preview. I mean, you saw him all the time during football, 6'5" and just bulked up. I mean, he's going to be a guy that a lot goes through. Chris Scott, another football guy that 6'3", 6'4", is a guard that is going to be able to dunk the ball on occasion. And they're going to have some other guys coming along, like Hunter Shednell, who's going to be a guard and a forward. He had some huge threes against Pick Central in a game last year. So they're going to be right there as well, in a league with some teams that too.
Right. I mean, talking about Reynoldsburg and Gahanna, I'll talk about them a little bit. Mm-hmm. Reynoldsburg is a team that emerged last year to win a district title, only their third in program history, and they had this great pool of talent last year. They were kind of they had a lot of seniors playing last year. So does that mean they're going to be down this year? I would say no. There's, I've been covering this team for a long time. There's a lot of interest in boys basketball at that school. There's a lot of great athletes in that school. They have Ben Ford back. He's kind of their most experienced player back. And then there's some names that hopefully people are going to have a chance to get to know. They were kind of like JV players and guys that maybe were like listed in their postseason roster that got a few minutes here and there. Guys like Josiah Mobley, Eldon Boateng, Xavion Croft. There's just a lot of potential with this team, and I think they're going to be a team that grows throughout the season. And I mean they've got a pretty good test coming up Saturday. I think they're playing this Legacy Christian team, so in the All Ohio Prep Shootout, which that's going to be at Gahanna and Pickerington North.
Correct.
And there's going to be a lot of really good matchups there. One of them, we'll talk about this a little bit later, is Hartley against Columbus South. That is a great matchup, and we'll talk about those teams later. As far as Gahanna, Josh Corbin is a very talented senior guard for them, and he was expected to team up with Elijah Thomas to give maybe Gahanna, maybe Central Ohio, maybe one of Central Ohio's best backcourts for sure. But then in some kind of freak injury, like he hurt his elbow just a couple weeks ago. And, there's been different reports, 6 to 8 weeks. When I talked to Coach Steib the other day, he seemed to think he's probably a season ender. So it's really sad for him.
Yeah.
Now, they've got a lot of young talent coming up through it, too. They've got a freshman named Sean Jones, and he's supposed to be like an impact player. So pretty excited to get a chance to see him play.
What about the SEC Central? Again, just like it's girls, it's Kaufman, it's UA.
Well, UA's going to have a different look for sure without Mr. Goodwin there, Mr. Basketball, Dane Goodwin, who's up at Notre Dame now. I think they ran so much through him the past couple of years. He's their leading scorer and leading rebounder for a reason. He's really darn good.
Yeah.
And he was certainly the focal point of everything that they wanted to do the last couple of years. Max Martz is the guy probably who's going to be their number one option. He's going to Pennsylvania. He's a 6'6" senior. He's had a solid career so far, even as a secondary guy. But he's going to be able, I think, to really step up very well. He was around 15 points and about 6 rebounds off the top of my head a year ago that he averaged. But yeah, he's going to be a good guy. Jake Warner was a good addition from New Albany, where he averaged over 10 points a game last year.
You had Sammy Sass back, too.
Sammy Sass.
He's a good athlete.
Well, and there's a good story in itself. He hurt himself September 21st, the Lightning weekend, as I like to call it, against Lancaster, when we had all those delays. He got a broken collarbone diving down near the goal line. Today is November 29th, so that was 2 months and 8 days ago. And the Bears are pretty confident that he's going to be back really soon.
Okay.
So that's a nice story for him to heal as fast as he had. He's going to play baseball at Wright State, by the way. So yeah, having him at point guard is going to be a huge welcome back for them. Josh Russian and some other guys may end up running it in the meantime.
As far as Kaufman's concerned, they've got Dominic Penn back, extremely talented player. Only a junior still, has some really big offers out there, and I think the offers are going to continue to keep coming. The thing about it is that he's got a lot of talent this year around him. The talent that's been around him, guys like Derek Van Blera, Will Hunter, Luke Bartimas, those guys have been around, but they just keep getting better. From everything that I hear, Bartimas he's a great shooter. Van Blera gives them kind of like this. He's tall. He's like 6'5", but he's kind of like a wing player, so really athletic. They did get a transfer from Hilliard Davidson, who's really good, Patrick Priest. Now, according to Coach Collins, he's not sure exactly his eligibility status. I think when I talked to him last week, but if he's able to play the whole year, he was just played the first half. He's really talented. And then there's another Shelton, JC's younger brother AJ, is got some skills from what I understand. So looking forward to seeing him play. There's a couple of the Division I teams we probably ought to hit.
Well, I was going to say the OCC Buckeye.
Yeah.
Where we've got Ben Roderick coming back at Liberty from an injury, Sean Marks from Olentangy, Westerville South's got a ton of talent.
Jordan McMillan.
Westerville South has a ton.
Oh, you meant
I said
North,
North.
yeah.
I think I said Westerville North. Westerville North and Westerville South are both very talented.
Jeremiah Keene's really good.
That's a great league in basketball this year, or should be.
Olentangy was a pretty solid team last year. They finished last in the league and won 14 games overall. It was just that's how good they are. You mentioned Sean Marks a minute ago. He's going to have 1,000 points for his career probably within the next week or two. He's only 65 points away. Now, Ben Roderick was mentioned as well. I was at the game where he was hurt last year, and it looked like he just kind of slipped on the floor, and we got a sense right after the game of how bad it was.
Yeah.
But boy, I mean, even when I was talking to John Fiesel yesterday over at Olentangy for the preview, I mean, he's saying, yeah, I mean, Roderick is going to be one of the very top players in that league.
And he's a really good kid too. I mean, he's got his head on straight. I've talked to him several times over the last couple of years, and I think it's going to be really exciting to see him be able to get back out there.
Yeah.
See if he can return to that level that he was at last year before he got hurt. I mean, he's averaging like 24 points a game.
24.3 before he was hurt.
Yeah, I mean, he's already scored 1,000 points. That was that
night, if my
that
memory
that
serves
night.
correctly.
Yeah.
It's the same night that he got hurt, and he's bulked up.
So-
Apparently, he's up over 200 pounds now. A little strong guy.
So, yeah, it's a really deep league, and I think Westerville North is with Jeremiah Keene and Philip Alston, their team. It's going to be. They lost a few seniors, but I mean those are a couple of really good guys to start with. So.
Mm-hmm. Then the OCC Cardinal, where you have Bradley, and
Bradley is deep.
A lot of people
from what I
excited
understand.
about
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Bradley's lost some guys too, but they're at the same time.
Maybe it's just ready for maybe they had some young guys that weren't able to get in there because Isaiah Spielman and Norris were just kind of blocking the way. But I mean, my understanding is that they've got some young talent that's really good. They've got Matt Aloco back, and he's a really great outside shooter. He's a good place to start for them. And of course, they got Zach Hummel and Chris Mayfield, and they're both veterans. They've got a 6'6" kid who's a sophomore named Jack Pugh, and I believe he was just kind of a role player for him last year.
Yeah,
So-
6-man I think is what Saturn was telling
yeah,
us.
so maybe he moves into a deeper role this year. And I mean, they went 25-2 last year, so and they seem to be the best team in that league. I mean, the rest of the league after that is kind of like a mix of some balanced teams like Double Jerome, and there's some solid teams in there, but I don't think there's anybody that probably can challenge Bradley.
Well, Thomas has Ben White, who's
Ben White, right?
Center who can play, and
As far as the city,
yeah, as I say, we should probably move on and see. Is there any? Did we miss? What about the OCC Capital? You cover New Albany.
Newark's going to be good again. New Albany lost a lot of talent last year. I mentioned Jake Warner, who moved over to Upper Arlington. Will King is not playing football this year. He's committed to be a defensive end, at Akron, and he was a real nice presence for them in the middle. Canal Winchester has a really good guard, Brady Snyder. He's finally a senior. He's been an impact player for 3 years now. He's going to be their point guard. He can shoot the heck out of the ball. They've got some other guards that they're pretty excited about, and some size in the middle that they're hoping to bring along as well. I mean, those are the two teams that I see in that league. The people that I have talked to as far as that league is concerned, say Newark, of course, is still the team to beat over there.
they love basketball out there. As far as the city, I really like Walnut Ridge and South in the city this year, City South. Walnut Ridge has Von Cameron Davis, exceptional young talent. He's still only a junior. And they got Keon Magwood, great athlete, got a lot of looks from colleges in football and basketball already. And they got a transfer in from Hamilton Township named Kavion Ross, 6'5" forward. So you throw those three, gives them this really great nucleus that's going to contend with South, which has Trail Watkins back, Marcus Johnson, which are a couple of veterans. I mean, they were 22-5 last year. Eastmore will always be solid because they're well coached with Coach Miranda. They did lose a lot, so it'll be interesting to see how they're able to kind of bounce through that. And then as far as the North, I mean, I think it still has to start with probably Beechcroft. Centennial will be pretty good, and Northland will be solid. And that league seems a little bit wide open this year.
Well, you mentioned Miranda. I mean, don't you think maybe that Eastmore is a little bit, behind because football team goes to a state semifinal. Jim Miranda coaches the football team, so there's a chance that they might be a little bit behind to start the season.
That's always a legitimate issue. I mean, every time the last few years I talked to Randy Quartercracks over at Hartley, he'd be like, "Well, we just got our football guys back," and it was like December 1st or something.
Which I guess is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Even so.
But you just that was a good segue into the CCL.
Speaking of Hartley,
yes,
they're going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be real good. Morgan Safford is ready to be like this big-time breakout player. 29 points in the district championship game last year. and he's ready to bust out. I think DeSales will be solid.
Well, they bring all their five back. They bring all their starting five back.
I think they'll be much improved. They only went 1-7 in that league, but I think they'll be much improved.
You know, I was thinking about this when I was writing the preview when I talked to them a little bit before Thanksgiving. Well, Joe Bill's first year, they went 0-8 in the CCL. Hadn't done that in over 50 years. That wasn't an indictment more of the talent that they had, but how good that league was, and that they were trying to really get that system established. Last year, Pat Murphy's first year, they go 1-7 in the CCL, but boy, there are a lot of games that were competitive. I was at several of them myself that they played really tough. That's not going to keep up this year. They are going to do much better in that league.
Absolutely.
And challenge, I mean, obviously, Hartley is somebody you mentioned, I think, what they tied for the league title, if I'm not mistaken,
Reed.
last year. With Reedy.
And Waters.
And Waters.
Waters.
It was, yeah, and then DeSales and
Three-way
St.
tie.
Charles were both 1-7.
Yeah. And
I think there's going to be more parity in that league this year.
Well, Reedy's
reasonable.
two best players graduated.
They did, and they're going to be well coached. They got Tony Basutti coaching them now. I mean, that is a guy
That's pretty good.
That's won over 300 games, and I think that they'll be solid, especially in Division III. And I think Watterson will be a team that could be like in a district final in Division II. I mean, they're going to be good. And as we move in, just to mention a couple things about the other divisions, Division III again, it's going to be super deep with Wellington, Harvest Prep. Harvest Prep is probably the best team in Division III around here. They got C.J. Anthony back, really exceptional young player. Still, he's finally a senior this year. I believe I'm sorry, he's a junior. Apologies for that. And they've got some other guys back from that team last year, so they're going to be good. And I mean, Afrocentric lost a lot, but they've got some young talent. They've got a lot of young talent out there. They always do. And you know they're going to be well coached with Michael Bates.
Jason's brother.
That's right. I don't know. This may be something for another day, but with competitive balance, it's made it so that Division IV is fairly weak. I mean, you even have Grove City Christian this year moving to Division III. I mean, and they've been a really good team the last few years. So I don't really, not sure what to make. A lot of Division IV teams are a little out of our coverage area, so not really familiar with a lot of those schools. But I know Division III is going to be great again.
I think we're just about ready to wrap it up. So, any final thoughts from you guys?
In addition to what we've mentioned before, I'm really intrigued about how that OCC Ohio race is going to turn out. I mean, can
boys
Pickerington
or
I'm talking about boys. I'm sorry. Can Pickerington North stay at the top of the league, or does Pick Central take it back over, or do neither of them win it? UA and Kaufman played two classics last year. Both, I think, decided on last-minute shots by none other than Dane Goodwin. Well, he's not there this year. I mean, we'll see if somebody else steps up. How's that league going to turn out now? Is it going to be like a 9-1, 9-1 thing between UA and Kaufman at the top of the league? I mean, those are the things I wonder about. And, as far as another team I cover, that CCL really intrigues me where DeSales is going to end up.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the only other thing is just that I think particularly in girls basketball around the area, this is a special season and you don't want to miss it because there's just an extremely high level of talent in Central Ohio this year.
Okay. Well, I think that will do it for our basketball preview. And just as a reminder, you can go to ThisWeekSports.com, scroll down a little bit, go to our Hoop It Up page. All the girls' previews are currently there, and the boys' previews will be there early next week. The girls' previews were running in our print editions for today, and so the December 6th edition, our next edition next Thursday, that's when the boys' stories will be running. But we always have them on ThisWeekSports.com Monday and Tuesday, so be sure to check that out. So for Dave Purpura and Jarrod Ulrey, I'm Andy Resnik, and thanks for watching.